to spill the tea, Lou. Obviously, we did not have our 12 o'clock show today. That is because we have got football. We obviously did have football last night. We've just had another match between Arsenal and Bournemouth, which is what we're going to be talking about, because contrary to popular belief, this is in fact a match reaction, which is why I've written in the title, match reaction. I am going to update the thumbnail, but obviously I'm live with you guys right now, which makes me a little bit slower to update the thumbnail. So do you know what? I'm going to just do that after the stream, because if I try and do it at the same time as I'm streaming, I will make a mess of it and then I'll probably break the stream as well. However, before we talk about the matches and we match react on the match reaction stream, we did have Huge in the chat earlier on before the stream started to let me know that he was fact checking me. So Huge has said, "Hi Lou, I was checking Carrick's win rate because 53% didn't sound right. I think," so he's a theory on why I got it so wrong also. "I think you forgot Fletcher was in charge for 2 games, so Carrick was in charge for only 10 Premier League games and has won 7. Which I did then go and check, because I said, okay, Huge sounds pretty certain that I got it drastically wrong. Let me have a look. I did in fact get the numbers wrong, but it was not because I forgot about Fletcher. I was fully aware that Fletcher managed for a few matches. What I did do is I googled, before I went in and looked at the matches and counted them up, I googled what date Carrick took over as the head coach of Manchester United, because I'm not allowed to say manager either. So I'm being fact checked all over the place, what I'm allowed to say, what I'm allowed, calculate. So that's all right, guys. Everybody's out there fact checking. So Michael Carrick, the head coach, since I can't say manager, started on the 13th of January. I read the number backwards and I read it as the 31st of January, and therefore I did miscalculate his win rate. I was only giving him credit for 50%, which is a big fat lie, because I just decided I was going to lie to you all on purpose. No, his win rate is 70%. So fair enough, 70% is drastically bigger than 50%. So Michael Carrick's win rate is 70% since he joined Manchester United as the head coach, not the manager. Not 50%. However, seeing as that did not have a role in anything I said about why I don't want him to be the permanent manager, I still don't want him to be the permanent manager. But it might make some of you feel better to know it's 70% and not 50%. So let's just have that out there. Little fact check. We're all correcting right now. Now let's actually talk about the match reactions of the matches. So, obviously, if I have time, I will get into West Ham Wolves, which I did watch, which had an astounding result, which I did not expect whatsoever. However, another result that I did not expect. Well, to be fair, I say that, but when we were doing our match predictions, I did say it was a strong possibility, so it wasn't that it's crazy out there. But Bournemouth have just beaten Arsenal. Bournemouth have just beaten Arsenal 2-1, and I have to say, if I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm really concerned. And I've been saying this now for a few weeks. Their performances haven't been good. They're nicking things at the end. They're I would be starting to stress now. I said at the time I didn't think it was going to be a crisis, that it wasn't a crisis after the few matches previously. Now it's starting to feel like a crisis, because now what we're seeing is Manchester City are starting to click into the next gear. Manchester City are starting to be real smooth. Manchester City, up till this point, maybe this weekend that'll change again, they seem to have found their extra gear, but Arsenal seem to be just grinding to a halt. Bournemouth were by far the better team today. There was basically, up until like the 80th minute, there was no point in the match where Arsenal had a sustained period of pressure at all. None. They looked really unconvincing. Raya lost his mind at one point, where Declan Rice actually had to go over and tell him to calm the hell down. Gabriel actually wasn't too bad. I think he was probably the better of the Arsenal players today. But for the most part, certainly for the first 20-30 minutes, Arsenal, they had possession, but they were side to side to side to side, to back to front to side to side. They weren't moving forward with it. They weren't really doing anything. Bournemouth, on the other hand, were attacking. They were trying to be dangerous. They were trying to do something. So while Arsenal were having spells of possession, they didn't feel particularly dangerous. The match itself overall didn't have a particularly high tempo for most of it. It was sort of cagey, taking turns sort of attacking. But as I said, Bournemouth felt actually dangerous, whereas Arsenal felt like possession for the sake of possession, if you get what I mean. And then we do have the goal by Krupi Jr. So Truffert crosses it. It sort of flicks off Saliba's foot into Krupi, who kind of comes through the air and kicks it into the back of the net. It was a really, really good goal, a really good looking goal, an attractive goal. But it doesn't matter because they all count as goals. And before I get into it any further, let me say hello to you guys, because I've just got straight into it. I'm so aware that we don't have time, because obviously there's more matches kicking off at 3 o'clock. I wanted to make sure that I addressed the Michael Carrick thing, because when I was talking about it at the time, Rob did question it, and I was like, no, I've worked out. And then Huge said it, and I was like, right, I better go check my maths here. So I wanted to make sure that I did mention that, because 50% and 70% are drastically different. So I didn't want to tell you guys lies. So I did want to address that. But we have 26 minutes before the next matches kick off. So I'm feeling the pressure, guys. I'm feeling under pressure with the time. But let me say hi to you guys, see how we are, see who's in the chat, see how everybody's feeling, and then we'll get back into looking at the match. So, lovely Lucky is in the house. I don't know if Huge is back with us, but he was here. He was the first one here. Guess is in the house. She's making some tea, but she didn't see the incident. Gaz Elliott is in the house. Greg is in the house. Big up to you guys. Let me see. Greg is watching us on the phone because he is Dortmund and Leverkusen on the TV. Well, that's fair. We'll take that, Greg. Paige is also in the house. Big up to Paige, who says big up the cherries. Guys, please do smash a like on the video on your way in, and do also get your votes in on the poll. Was that a handball by Christie, the one that resulted in the penalty, or was his hand in a natural position? 67% of you so far have said yes, it's a handball. 33% of you have said no, his hand was in a natural position. I'm a little bit undecided. I would probably need to watch it a few more times, but I was a little bit undecided, and I suppose really what it comes down to is the referee made the on-field call. If it is a little bit grey, then it's not a clear and obvious error, therefore VAR shouldn't get involved, which is fair enough. I was just curious because I'm undecided, so I wanted to see the kind of impression other people got. But that does bring us to the fact that there was a penalty given. There was a handball by Christie, what was deemed to be a handball by Christie. What I did feel, the ball was kicked to his hand from very close range. Okay, so he had no opportunity to get out of the way. It was very, very close. The ball hit him really fast. But the argument was, is his hand in a natural position? Now, it was away from his body, it was up in the air. However, what had happened was he had taken a step. So when you take a step and in that momentum, I do think it's natural for your hand to move out. I don't know if he moved a kind of little bit extra. That's why I would probably want to re-watch it. His hand is away from his body. However, I don't always think that necessarily means you're in an unnatural position, because, as I said, the ball came at him fast from close range, which can mean that, like, you don't have time to pull your hand in towards your body. It was too fast. So I would want to watch it again. I'm not 100%. I can see why it was given. I can see why people would argue, well, what was he supposed to do? That's the way your body moves when you're doing that thing. It wasn't an unnatural position, which is why it was given officially, according to the commentators. So I'm undecided, which is why I'm asking you guys. Huge, I addressed your fact check, so I did. So if you missed it at the start, scroll back a little bit or watch it after the football. But I addressed you. I did not forget about Fletcher. I got 13 and 31 mixed up. So I wish I just forgot about Fletcher, because that would be less dense of me. But I instead read 13 backwards as 31 and therefore counted the wrong number of games. But yes. Lucky says, yes, there was pressure, but more leaders need to take control in the situation. Huge accidentally clicked, yes, it was a handball, but meant to click no. So at the minute it says 50-50, but what it should say is 75 no, 25 yes. So we'll bear that in mind. Obviously, I haven't voted. I never do because it skews the results, and I don't want to throw the results out for you guys. And Lucky is saying more leaders like Eze, Zubamendi and need to take the lead like Declan Rice. So Lucky has lots to say on that. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. Obviously, the penalty was awarded, the penalty was taken, the penalty was scored by Victor Gyökeres, which left it at 1-1. And one of the main notes that I had from the first half, other than the fact that Arsenal lacked intensity, was that the Bournemouth players, they were just closing them down. They were like on them. They were like shutting them down. They were pressing them. They were just, Arsenal couldn't get out. They couldn't string a set of passes together. They just couldn't. It was like do you know what it, and this is going to sound weird. Do you know when you're cycling a bicycle and you change the gear and you hear the clinking of the chain moving to the next gear? It felt like Arsenal were getting stuck. They couldn't change the gear. They kept trying, but the chain kept falling off. That's what it felt like. The chain kept falling off when they tried to move up the gear. That's how I felt. They just couldn't. They couldn't string the passes together. Not only because they couldn't string the passes together, but because Bournemouth were closing them down so effectively and so efficiently. And I thought particularly Madueke struggled. I felt like he was trying to do things. He was trying to run down. He was trying to attack. He was trying. There was no lack of effort. However, he just couldn't. He was trying and getting nowhere fast. He was really struggling. He wasn't the only one, but I felt like he was the one really trying and it wasn't coming off. Some of them I felt like, no, they weren't even trying as hard as him. I thought Declan Rice had quite an off game. Obviously, he was wearing the captain's armband today. I think he had a reasonably quiet game as well, to be honest with you. I thought Truffert was really, really good, and he was obviously the one dealing with Madueke. I thought Krupi was very, very, very good. I thought, as I said earlier, out of all the Arsenal players, the one that maybe was the most convincing for me, Gabriel did some good defending, and I think if it wasn't for him, that scoreline could have been a lot worse. It was also him that dealt with Raya's absolute madness, and at the end, it was nearly him that was trying his best to actually even up the score at the end and get it to 2-2, which obviously didn't come off, but he was trying. Raya, I thought, had a really poor game. Raya had a really poor game twice. He almost passed it. At the start of the second half, he almost passed it. He sort of tried to kick it out, but scuffed it and basically almost laid it on a plate for Evan Nielsen. If Evan Nielsen was about 2 inches taller, that was another goal for Bournemouth already. Luke is in the house. Lovely Luke is here. Lucky is saying Bournemouth are a horrible team to play. They are, to be fair. And I think that's a compliment. Guests say bikes scare her. Mama Flossie is in the house. Welcome to the lovely Mama Flossie. Paige is in the house. Oh, Paige is saying hi to Flossie. Paige was here before. I already said hi to Paige. Guys, I'm very aware of the time sensitivity of this matter. But Arsenal also made a triple substitution in the 55th minute. So for me, that's Mikel Arteta admitting the players that were on the pitch were not effective. They were ineffective. What I will say is I expected to see a bigger impact from the substitutions that were made. And really, it took them a while to get going as well, because the momentum of the match, the tempo of the match didn't change really for quite some time. It was sort of 70 minutes in before Arsenal really felt like they were starting to wake up. And as I said, sort of a bit of sustained pressure kind of in the kind of 80 odd minutes towards the back end of the match. But really up till that point, there just didn't seem to be any intensity with Arsenal. And when they did try to do anything, Bournemouth was shutting it down. What I will also say is Arsenal were taking a lifetime with their set pieces. And again, this isn't something I normally criticise. It's not something I normally give out about. I don't care about the long throw-ins. I don't care about the corners. You know, whatever it takes to win, you belt away and do it. But the reason I want to bring it up is because I actually felt like nobody was presenting for the ball. So you could see the player there ready, and this was a lot of the time on the throw-ins. You could see the player ready to take the throw in, whoever was taking the throw at the time, right? And they couldn't find a person to throw it to because it felt like nobody was presenting. Nobody was trying to get away from their man. So Bournemouth were tight to them, pressing them. But nobody was trying to get away from their man and present for the ball to give the person making the throw-in an opportunity or somewhere to put it. It happened kind of in the second half as well with Raya when he was trying to kick the ball out. There was nobody really freeing themselves up to have the ball kicked to them. I think sometimes it's a case of the winning team was excellent or the losing team was terrible. I actually thought today it was both. I think Arsenal were really, really underwhelming, and I thought Bournemouth performed at the tip top of their abilities. I thought they were really, really, really good. But yeah, what did you guys think? What did you guys think? Were you surprised? Were you underwhelmed? Do you think I'm being fair? Do you think I'm being too harsh? Where are you at with it? What did you notice? What were your takeaways? Because obviously then Scott scores the second goal for Bournemouth, 2-1. That made it 2-1, which is obviously what we had as the final score. But in contrast to Arsenal, who I feel couldn't get any space because Bournemouth were pressing them so much and were kind of shutting them down so much, Scott had so much space when he was taking the shot for that goal. And I think it was Zubimendi that kind of sees him at the last minute and tries to run towards him. But there was no defenders anywhere near him. And I just felt like Arsenal gave Bournemouth so much space. There was several passes in the lead up to the second goal for Bournemouth, for Scott's goal. Scott wasn't shut down or pressed, but neither was anybody else in the build up to the goal. The ball went through about 4 players before Scott's goal, and nobody tried to shut any of them down. I just felt like Arsenal were almost stepping off them. They were almost giving them the space, really cheaply, to be honest with you. Then there was another 2 subs made by Arsenal at 2-1. And Diamond does at that point force a save from the Bournemouth keeper, which does nearly... So the Diamond makes the shot, the Bournemouth keeper saves it. It then goes into kind of a huddle of people. Gyökeres is one of the people there. He tries to get it out and get the shot off. It ends up going out for a corner. And then after the corner, it actually almost ended up in a Bournemouth attack, Bournemouth counter-attack, and Gyökeres actually had to take down Tavernier to stop that attack going forward, which he does get a yellow card for. But to be honest, I think that's the kind of yellow card where you go, we needed that yellow. We needed that yellow card. He took one for the team in that scenario. But then even after that, there was a really loose pass in the midfield by Eze, which again resulted in a Bournemouth attack. And Gabriel was the one who defended that to stop that being another goal. I just thought they were so contrasting today. Bournemouth worked so hard. They looked full of energy. They were attacking the ball. They were closing down the players. They were closing down the spaces. They were dangerous. Arsenal felt very flat. Arsenal felt tired. They felt lackluster. They weren't closing down. They weren't taking up the spaces. Raya, poor passes, poor distribution. And nobody presenting for the throw-ins to kind of take the ball. Nobody took control. And Lucky mentioned earlier in the chat talking about the leaders, and it felt like today Gabriel was their best player, I think, by a mile. I think who did I say earlier? Madueke was trying, but not getting anywhere very fast. I think towards the end, after all the subs, kind of Dauman tried a bit. I think Trossard actually had the most impact of all the subs that was brought on. but it took him a little while, but he did. Gyökeres tried, but overall, I just thought Arsenal really weren't very good. It is basically where I come down to. And if I am an Arsenal fan, I'm now concerned. And I know obviously Luke is an Arsenal fan who's in the chat with us. So if Luke wants to let us know how he's feeling, don't worry, we won't judge you. We're all friends in here. But let me see what all of you guys are saying. How you're feeling. Everybody's saying hi to each other. Yes, Lucky's saying they press so much. They do, they really do. Luke is saying Arsenal were pretty flat today. The crowds... Oh, sorry guys. I am not on silent because I have forgotten. I ran to the computer after the match so we would have more time to talk to each other. But yeah, so Luke says Arsenal were pretty flat today. The crowd seemed flat. I think the nerves got to them. I also think the nerves got to them. You could feel the nerves in the crowd, which are understandable, but you could feel them. Definitely. I could feel them through the screen, so I agree with that. Let me see. Paige has no opinion on the game. She's just happy that Bournemouth won. She decided to watch QPR and Bristol instead. Fair enough. Lucky is saying Arsenal need more points. Yes, they do. Luke is saying, I'm concerned. I don't feel the gutted feeling completely. I think it's the cushion giving me hope. To be fair, this is why you have a cushion. This is why you wanted a cushion. This is why you built a cushion. So that if this happens, it's not like the end, okay? The reason you have the cushion, the reason you want the cushion, the reason the cushion is good is because when something like this happens, it's not a catastrophe. If you now still win all the rest of your matches, it's still okay. The problem is your next match is against Sporting Lisbon. You're only 1-0 up, and that was very lucky at the end by Havertz. You could have been going into it 0-0, so you know they're going to give you a run for your money. And then your match after that is Man City at the Etihad. That is the concern. The cushion's good, and it gives you the space to deal with this, but your next two matches are going to be incredibly hard, and coming off the back of that performance, off the back of a lot of the performances you've had, it's a problem. Huge is saying it's not really a cushion though if they lose to City away and City win their game in hand. But that's the thing, that's if. So at the minute, it is a cushion. If they lose to City, then that's another 3 points taken away from it. And if City win their game in hand, that's another 3 points. Then the cushion's gone. But at the minute, they do have that space because none of those games have been played. So I would consider that a cushion because it exists. It's there. There are real points on the board. To me, I'm not counting if City win because maybe they won't. And I'm not saying if City win their game in hand because maybe they won't. Now, and Arsenal have control over at least 3 of those points because they're also playing in the match. So if the two things you've said happen, Huge, then it's not a cushion anymore because the cushion's gone. But at the minute it's in place, it exists. It's real. It's a real cushion, even if we can't see it. So as it stands, it's there. But it does mean Arsenal need to win against Manchester City because if they don't, then as Huge says, it's gone. It's in the bin. There's no cushion, then it's not a real cushion anymore. It's a wooden cushion. What I'm going to look at is Arsenal. I thought Arsenal had been doing better in the games where they had, or in the game weeks where they had gone first. They seemed to perform better, but it's actually something I'm going to go back and check. And I'll double check me dates so nobody has to come and correct me afterwards. Make sure we're all right. To see kind of the game weeks where they've played first and the game weeks where they've played after City, do they tend to win or lose, if you get what I mean? But I'm going to do that as like a separate video because I'm interested, because it's something I feel like it's happening, but now I'm not sure. So I want to go and check it. But guys, guys, as exciting as it is that Arsenal didn't win today, they were not the only match that has happened already this weekend, because yesterday we had West Ham and Wolves, which actually turned out to be an absolutely phenomenal game. I'm sorry, let me close the poll before we move on from the match. So, was that a handball by Christie, or was his hand in a natural position? Now, this is going to be out slightly because Huge wanted to say no. So what it should read, if we change Hughes, would be 40% yes handball and 60% no, his hand was in a natural position. So what you see and what I say are not going to be the same, but that's because Huge clicked the wrong button, so we're swapping his vote across. We've magically done it in our minds. But West Ham and Wolves, what a game. 4-0. Never in a million years, never in 100 million years did I think that game was going to be 4-0. I think the game started very, very cagey. It was slow. Nobody wanted to make the mistake. I thought they'd want to go for it, but actually they didn't want to make the mistake. Nobody wanted to be the one to blink first. However, Mavropanos made it 1-0 for West Ham. Absolutely fantastic header. And what I noticed is the commentators were all saying it was against the run of play, that Wolves had been far the better team, that the West Ham, didn't deserve to be 1-0 up, and the goal was against the run of play. I didn't really feel like that, and a lot of people seemed to say it, so clearly I was watching a different match, because that did seem to be the feeling across the board, and I was like a little odd duck, and I was like, I actually felt like it was much of a muchness. I felt both teams were cagey, I felt both teams were getting chances. I didn't think either team was particularly dangerous. Potentially the Wolves' chances were slightly better, but certainly not by any great amount, if that makes sense. So I didn't really think it was drastically against the run of play, if I'm totally honest with you. But the problem with the goal was it came from a corner that wasn't actually a corner. So a corner was awarded to West Ham. The thing is, it wasn't actually a corner. It shouldn't have been a corner. It should have been a goal kick. But it was awarded as a corner, and Mavropanos scored it with a really, really good header. So if you're Wolves at that point, you probably feel a little bit hard done by. The fact that West Ham go on to win 4-0 probably makes it slightly less important, because West Ham really come into their own in the second half. What I will say is, in the first half, for West Ham, I thought Somerville was very good, and I thought Duff was very good. For Wolves, I thought Armstrong was giving it a really good go, and Krejci, who I know from his match against the Republic of Ireland, was also giving it a really good go. But look, you go into half time, it's 1-0, it was quite cagey, it was much of a muchness, it was a really good goal from a corner that shouldn't have been a corner. You're going, right, Wolves can definitely come back into this match, it's still anybody's game, it's not anything crazy. But then Wolves get a free kick, which needs a really good save from the keeper. And yes, Mama Flossie's correct. Please don't forget to hit the like button, guys and gals. I know this is a fly-in stream. I know it's at an unusual time of the day in between all the football, but we move for the football. The football doesn't move for us, and I couldn't go a whole day without talking to you. So here we are, in between the matches, squeezing ourselves in between the matches. But then, after that, Bowen hits a shot off the post. And the thing is, in West Ham's last match, Jared Bowen was hitting the balls off the post. He just can't get the ball in the back of the net. Now, he was very important. He had a very good match. He was, trying to build things. He was creating chances for other people. But he just can't get the ball in the back of the net himself at the minute. However, it just started to feel like Wolves were starting to get onto the front foot. They were starting to attack a bit more. They were starting to get a few more chances. Somerville, I thought, was a lot quieter in the second half than he was in the first half for West Ham. And just at that moment where I'm like, right, is the tide starting to turn here? Tati Castellanos makes it 2-0 to West Ham. And to be honest, that just actually turned the match on its head then. That was the start for West Ham. For me, that was actually when West Ham started to really, really perform, if I'm honest with you. But for that goal for Castellanos, it was absolutely terrible defending by Wolves. Somerville had nicked the ball after me saying he was quiet. He just nicked the ball in the midfield from Matheus Mane, who everyone's been talking about. And then after that, Wolves defended just absolutely terribly. Then the goals just kept on coming. Castellanos makes it 3-0 to West Ham. There was 1 minute and 39 seconds between the second and the third goal for West Ham. That included the celebrations of the first goal. So from play actually resumed, I would say there was less than 60 seconds. Which was just absolutely insane. But again, it resulted from Wolves losing the ball in the midfield. I actually think it might have been Bowen that got it back that time. I couldn't swear to it because it might have been Souček, but it was one of them that got it back in the midfield. There was a deflection that took it just beyond Sa, who maybe would have got to it otherwise. But as I said, 1 minute and 39 seconds between the second and the third goal for West Ham. They were on fire at this point, and then it just became like it was just all about West Ham. Mavropanos with a brace gets his second goal. It's from the corner, and he's actually right. So there's a corner, and Mavropanos is actually being pulled to the ground by the Wolves player, and as he's almost horizontal, he kicks the ball, and it's a goal, goes in the back of the net. And to be fair, if Adama Traore could hit a barn door, it would have been 5-0 because he was right through. The goal was right there. There was loads of space, and he just doesn't even get it on target. It was a really, really incredible match by West Ham. They really, really grew into it. It was not a scoreline I saw coming, but obviously it was very, very, very important in the relegation battle because what it did was it pushed Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs are now in the bottom three until they play their match and attempt to get themselves out of it. However, with 4 goals, West Ham have done no harm to their goal difference either. So it is all going on. 2 very, very, very good games so far. Bad result for Arsenal. Really good result for West Ham. Arsenal need to take a long, hard look at themselves. And as Lucky says, Bournemouth are a real problem in the Premier League. So obviously we've lots of matches still to go, but let me just take a look. That brings Bournemouth to 9th. Now obviously Fulham and Brighton etc. all still have to play Newcastle, Sunderland, so that could change and probably will, but they've wrangled themselves up into 9th. And as it stands, until all of the games in hand and extra games and the head-to-head game happens, at the moment, there is 9 points between City and Arsenal. Obviously, Tribal, I don't know who Jack is, so I think you're looking in the wrong place. Right, guys. JT is just here as we're about to end the stream. He wanted to have his say and not miss anything. But JT says, big up the chat, not unexpected for me. I don't think it was massively unexpected for a lot of people. I think it was disappointing for the Arsenal fans that were hoping for a more convincing performance at the very least. Yeah, JT says, if City were ever going to lose this game, after this, they won't. And I think that might be it. I think it might give City a boost to see it. And that's the thing. Does it put pressure on them, or does it give them a boost? Do they feel like, right, well, now we really can't lose, or this is our opportunity? And it's all about perspective, isn't it? But guys, I'm going to go. It's 1 minute past 3. The games have kicked off. I will be live later on. It will be late. I'll be live late this evening to react to the rest of the matches today, I believe. Let me just make sure I'm not telling you any lies. Yes, so my plan will be to be live after the Liverpool and Fulham match, so just keep a wee eye out for that. Keep your notification bell on. I will be live this evening after Liverpool Fulham, and we'll talk about the 2-3 o'clock matches and obviously whatever the result of the Liverpool Fulham match is. Hello to lovely Shem. It's nice to see you before we bid adieu. Thank you all very much for being here, guys. Please do smash a like on the video if you haven't done so already. Have a lovely day, whether you're watching the football or not. And hopefully I will get to talk to all of you later on this evening after Liverpool and Fulham. Big up to you too, Luke. Big up to everybody. Have a really nice day, guys.